In this lecture, I'm going to go into how we go about creating topography and begin to use some of the commands and the tools within Revit when it comes to creating topography. Now, I should note that it is not our job to create a topo surface. In the real world, we hire a surveyor. A surveyor has all of the tools necessary to really provide a very accurate, at the very least, two-dimensional, if not a three-dimensional digital model of the topography. Okay. Most architects, contractors don't have the tools to do that, nor the know-how to do it. So we typically will subcontract out the surveyor to provide the topo surface. Okay. So what we're going to be covering right now is just kind of creating our own, and mainly so that we can begin to learn how to work with the topography or with these commands within Revit. And in the real world, when you actually get a surveyor to provide the three-dimensional topo surface, we're still going to have to edit the topo surface regardless, because we're going to be adding or making changes or building a new building, which is going to require us to manipulate the topo surface. And so manipulating an existing topo surface is very similar to creating our own. So that's where we're going to kind of go about it in this lecture. So I'm going to start off by actually hiding. I'm in the 3D view, and I pulled up the previous project that or the previous assignment that we had worked on. And I'm going to, in the 3D view, I'm going to hide all of these. These are my level lines, right? I'm going to go ahead and select all and just hide them. So right click, hide in view elements, or I could also do categories because I want all of them hidden. Okay. I just don't like seeing them. They become distracting. So from here, we're going to jump over to our site plan view. Okay? And this is what we get. Now, when I'm working on the site plan, let's go down to fine. I actually like to change my detail level, or sorry, the visual settings to wireframe. Okay. You'll notice that in the site plan, all I get to see is the roof, but remember that the roof overhangs from the actual building. And so I don't get an actual building outline. So I have no idea where the building actually begins. So when we go into wireframe, then we actually see everything down below. Now it could be a little bit confusing because what we're seeing is both the second floor and the first floor walls overlapping one another. But that's okay. I think I know the project well enough to understand, okay, there's my stairs. This box there is the garage on the first floor. And from there, I could orient myself. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is come up here and go to the massing and site tab. And then from here, I'm going to click on topo solid. Okay. So I'll click on topo solid, and it's going to take me into sketch mode. I'll go ahead and click on line. And at this point, you can go ahead and just draw your own property lines. Okay, so make up a property line. And we'll just say let me zoom out a little bit. I don't know. Let's say that's what it is right there. Oh, whatever. I'll trim extend this. Now I just use the line tool, but you could always use, I don't know what I'm going to do this. You could always curve a wall or curve the topography if you wanted to. Delete that. Okay. And then we'll hit the check mark. We're going to get a warning that says that our topo solid and our floor overlap, which is true because we just created a ground at the same height as our ground, the same height as our floor. So that's why we have that overlapping geometry. So I'm just going to hit the click on that X. Okay. And let's take a quick look at this in the 3D view. And there we have our topo surface. Now I'm actually going to, it's always, I should say, we should always start or place the topo surface, or this topo solid, and I apologize for calling it topo surface. Revit in the 2024 version completely redid its topography commands, and it used to be called topo surface. It's now called topo solid. So I'm still getting used to the new name. So with this topo solid, it's best to place it at the lowest point of your topography. Okay. So what I'm going to try to create is a topography that is higher on the backside and then comes down, levels out, and then is lower on the front side. Okay. So that in essence, the idea is that we had a topography, it's on a hillside and it's sloping. The hill is kind of sloping down from the back of the house to the front. Okay. But we leveled it out and then it goes up again. Now, the other thing sorry. So what we're going to do is bring this down. Okay. So I'll select this. And in the properties box, it says height offset. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down negative, I don't know, 2 feet. I'm going to bring it down a whole lot. Okay. And there you can kind of see that the house is hovering, which is fine because we're going to raise it up from here. So the lowest point is where you're going to place the topo solid, and then we're going to build it up from that point. Now, the other thing that we need to keep in mind when it comes to topography is that when we're building a house, the ground is never at the same height as your finished floor. Remember that when it rains, we always want to divert water away from the building. And so in order to do that, we actually will divert or create the landscape 6 inches from the finished floor. Okay. So this way that the house is always 6 inches above the grass or the dirt. This way the house will never get flooded, right? Or the idea is that it will never get flooded. The water will never actually get inside. Okay. So that's going to be important because what we're going to want to do is kind of create a flat bed all around the house that is 6 inches below our finished floor. So let's go ahead and keep that in mind as well. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is select on the topo solid, and then I'm going to come over here where it says modify sub elements. And we'll notice is that the topo solid now has these green lines. Now at this point, what I can do is actually select one of the lines, and you'll notice that I get these arrows. And from here, I could go ahead and just bring this up. And so right here, we're going to keep getting this overlap. So let's ignore that. And what this does is it allows me to adjust the height of the perimeter of my topo surface. Okay. Now I could also do the same. Instead of clicking on the lines, I could also click on a point and bring that point up if I wanted to. Okay. Do the same thing over here. And so you could play around with this as much as you want. But what we're doing is adjusting the perimeter of our site. Okay. We haven't gotten into the interior just yet. But right now what we're doing is we're just adjusting the exterior, or we're adjusting the perimeter of our actual site. So let's go ahead and click there. Maybe we want to bring that up, and we'll bring it down just a little bit here. Okay. And then once you're done, we'll just hit the Enter key on the keyboard, and then we'll hit the check mark to finish sketch mode. It's going to say sketch is empty. We'll just hit continue. We'll hit quit sketching. There we go. And now we have topography. Okay. However, you'll see that we have quite a problem because the ground is now running into the house. So from here, what I want to do is begin to add some points inside here. Okay, and essentially I'm going to begin to add some points that are going to be 6 inches below that our finished floor. And the best way of doing that is actually going back to my site plan. Okay, because in my site plan I could actually see where things are at. So I'll go ahead and click on my topo solid again. And then I'm going to click on add points. Okay, and these are elevation points. So this means that wherever I click and add a point, it's going to adjust the elevation and it's going to adjust the topo solid based off of that point that I add. So I'm going to go ahead and click add point. And over here where it says add point, we have a long surface or absolute. A long surface means that it's going to add the point based on where my cursor is on the surface. Okay, so if I want to go 6 inches below from the top of that surface, then I want to leave that at a long surface. But what I want is to select absolute. So it's going to place a point at the absolute point from the elevation base that I have selected, which right now is the project base point. Okay. So from here, and project base point meaning the base point of our project is always on the ground level. So and it's the finished floor of level 1. Okay. So that means that I'm going to want to place this -0.6 inches. Okay. So now wherever I click, that's going to create a point and it's going to adjust the topography here to -0.6 inches. So now you'll see the topography is starting to slope downward to that one point. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click all around the building. And what you're seeing is Revit trying to triangulate the surface so that everything around here is 6 inches below level 1. Okay. And now once I'm done, I'll go ahead and hit the enter key again. It takes me into sketch mode. I'll just hit the check mark and then I'll hit quit sketching. And now we could begin to see the contour lines. And we see that this area here is flat. Okay, which is what we want. So let's go to the 3D view. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. And now we have the topography that is sloping down. It flattens out 6 inches below our building, and then it begins to go farther down. Okay. Now we can add points in 3D view if we wanted to. So let me show you. We can click on that. We'll click on add points. And maybe this time we want to go negative 1 foot, I don't know, 6 inches. And so from here, I can go ahead and click on some points. And it's kind of already sloping down. So it's not where you really can't see it. And plus the triangulation is in gray. So we're not really seeing much of a change. We'll hit the check mark, finish sketch mode and quit sketching. Yes, it didn't really, it did it, but because it's already sloping down to 2 feet over here, we're not really seeing that much of a change. Okay. But there you have it. So now if we wanted to, we need to, we could go to the site plan and cut a section. Now I'm just going to give you a heads up that when we create a section right now, it's not going to show it to us because in a site plan view, these section markers are turned off by default. Okay, but I could still click here, click down here, There's a warning, says none of the created elements are visible. So I'll hit the check mark. Notice it says it's not visible. Not that it didn't do it, it's just not visible in our site plan. But if we go to our first floor, there's that section marker. So let's go ahead and click there. Come on. There's our section. I'm going to change this detail level fine. Let's change the scale here to 1/8. Okay. I'm going to change the visual setting to shaded. And you'll notice that I have my topo solid. It is 6 inches below our level line. But what's a bit odd is that the topo solid is actually overlapping and running through our first floor, the actual first floor. And we got all of those warnings that told us that it was going to do it. However, we need to kind of address that because that's not really how it would be built. Now, we don't have any footings in this project, and we're not going to add any just for the sake of for this tutorial. But even if we did, the process of cutting out the topography or this topo solid with the solid object is going to be the same. Okay, so essentially what we need to do is cut out this little portion that's sticking, that's kind of overlapping our floor. We're gonna have to cut that out. And the way we do that is by selecting the topo solid. We're gonna come over here to cut, and then we're going to use the floor to do the cutting. But you have to make sure that you can click on the floor. I'm gonna move my cursor. You'll notice that it's not highlighting once it's trying to highlight the wall. So I'm going to place the cursor and hit the tab key on the keyboard. There we go. And now I'll click that floor and I'll hit enter. And now let me hit the escape key, get out. Oh, it didn't do it, did it? Let's try this again. Cut, select the floor, sorry, and hit enter. Okay, there we go. So now you'll see that it actually cut the floor. We'll do that again one more time. We'll click. We'll do cut and then select the floor. You know what? It didn't do it. What's going on over here? Let's go ahead and click on this floor again and hit enter. Okay. That seems odd. Okay. So as we zoom in, it's there. I think it's just because of the geometry. It's more than anything, it's the graphics card on the computer is kind of getting the two confused. But you could see that it is when we zoom in, and that's what really matters, is when you zoom in, did it actually cut through? And it did. Right, so now the two do not overlap, okay, which is what we want. Let's go back to the 3D view. Now the next thing is what happens if we want to add, let's say, a driveway. Adding a driveway, the default response would be to use the driveway as, or to create a driveway using our floor tools. But our floor tools, creating a floor is flat. So it'll create a floor and it'll go straight out. But the problem is what happens with our topography that's at an angle. So what we can do is let's go back to the site plan. We could select the topo solid and we could use this command that says subdivide. And what subdivide does is it'll divide a part of the topo surface or the topo solid, and it'll kind of recreate that chunk, and it'll place it on top of the topo solid. It doesn't go below. We can't excavate from the topo solid, but it does give us a chunk above. And then we can use that chunk and manipulate the material and give it a certain thickness that will then represent the driveway. So I'm going to click on subdivide, and it's going to take us into sketch mode. Okay. Now again, I am in wireframe. I am in the wireframe mode, which is why I'm seeing kind of an overlap in walls. But I just need to have an idea of where the garage starts, and I know that's this box right there. So I'm going to go ahead and just click right there. I'm going to go straight up, just like that. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, edit the boundary or the driveway, now would be the time. So what if maybe it comes down and then it comes out at 45? So now I'll use the trim extents, TR, click there, and trim this. I'll say that's my driveway. Okay. I'll hit the check mark. We'll go ahead and save the project. And now I have a topo solid or subdivision. Let's go to the 3D view. And that's what it looks like. Okay, it's one very big chunk. But when we go to the properties box, you'll notice that we can assign a height to this. So I can assign, say, just 2 inches and apply. You know, let's go up to 4 inches. Okay, there we go. That looks better. I could also select it and change the material. So let's go into the material. Let's type concrete. And let's see, we have these. So we only have 4 down here. We can, oh, here we go, broom finish. So let's go ahead and use the broom finish concrete. I'll hit the arrow key to add it inside, and then I'll hit apply and OK. Oh, I did not do it. No, it did. So when I click on this, it tells me that the material is concrete broom finish. Okay. So now I have my own driveway. Let's see if we go into textures. There we go. So now that gives it a different look. So if you wanted to add a walkway, you could do the same thing using the subdivision or the subdivide commands. Okay. Now the last thing I want to do is really quickly, we're in the textures, right? But my topo surface is gray, where it really, what we want it to be is kind of a green grass. So I can click on the topo surface. I can click on edit type. We go into the structure and edit the structure. And inside the structure, we can adjust the material. So I'll go ahead and click on by category, click on the 3 dots. Let's type in grass. And we don't have anything preloaded, so we're going to have to select the material down here and load it in. So I'll hit the check mark. And there it is. I'll hit apply, and then OK. I'll hit OK, apply and OK. And we could begin to see the grass. Okay. Now, as I'm orbiting around, you're beginning to see the graphics card kind of struggle. And that's just a hardware thing. So hopefully you don't see, if you have that issue, that's what's going on. We could kind of alleviate that by just going into shaded view, right? And that it actually ends up helping. Okay. So now we created our own topo surface. We manipulated it. We added the points however we want, or how to design the topo surface, manipulate the topo surface. We then cut the topo surface from the flooring, and we added the driveway. Okay, so hopefully that helps with your project in creating some sort of topography and landscape, which is going to be important for any project that you model out in Revit. Okay, good luck.